Kia ora koutou, everybody. I'm Cherie Carey. I'm the CEO of the Southland Business Chamber. For those of you that I have not met, it's a pleasure to be here today and bring Remy and the team from Datagrid to have this discussion. So thank you all for coming along. So there's been a huge amount of discussion about Datagrid's Makarewa data centre project, and I think it's fair to say that some of the concern in the community comes from a knowledge gap. This is a large technical project and when people see big numbers around power, around water, generators or data infrastructure, it's completely reasonable that they want the straight answers in plain English. Today's not about telling anyone what they should think, it's about hearing directly from Datagrid, understanding what they actually intend to build, what has changed since consent was granted and what it could mean for Southland, and putting some of those questions from our community and businesses directly to the team. So the project has resource consent. The Chamber's not a consenting authority and we are not technical experts on the regulatory process. So today's not about rerunning that process. Those matters sit with the appropriate authorities and experts. Our focus is on the practical questions: what will be built, how will it operate, what are the impacts and what are the opportunities for Southland businesses and workers, and what could the Tasman ring cable mean for the region long term. There are genuine concerns and there are also significant opportunities. Our aim is to understand both clearly and calmly without disappearing into jargon. So Remy and the Datagrid team will start with a technical update for you all. I'll then chat with them about the benefits for the region and then we'll finish with some audience questions, but the goal is that we've already covered most of your questions before we get to that stage. So welcome to Remy and the team to start your presentation, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Cherie, and kia ora. Very nice to meet you all. I'm quite impressed there's too many people today, but it's good to be here. Maybe a quick introduction of the team. I'm Remy, I'm the founder of the project Datagrid. Fiona here is environmental manager for Datagrid. We have Benjamin Black, our head of technology. We have Perrine Dalouin, the head of construction, and we have our great guest from Nederlof, Johnny, that will talk a little bit about the project. So we have a presentation, few slides, just to explain what we are trying to do here in Southland. Ben will present it, and after that I'm sure that we'll be happy to try to answer all your questions if we can. Thank you.
Good. All right. Yes, good. All right. If anyone can hear me, yell out. As Remy said, I'm Benjamin Black. I'm the head of technology for Datagrid. I have been involved in the project actually for 4 years now, but full-time working in this role about a year and a half. And there's been a lot of change in the project even during that time. As we focused in on what we're actually going to build, for whom, and how we're going to build it. So we're going to talk about all that today. So this is where we were when we consented or received resource consent in March. And this represents a view that had been present for a couple of years about how we were going to build for whom. And when I say for whom, it matters a lot what is going to happen in the data center. Is this going to be a bunch of servers? Is it going to be air-cooled or liquid-cooled? Is it going to be GPUs for AI? And without knowing those sorts of things, you don't know exactly what you're going to build. And so this was an idea of what we might build. So it shows 6 data centers and a large grid exit point here in the foreground. That's ultimately where we were when we got consent. But things have moved on a lot since that. The process of consenting means that initially when we talk about resource consent, we have to come up with what's called the maximum set of effects, particularly environmental effects. And this is assuming the worst case for everything, including things that you would simply never do, questions that you haven't yet answered, choices that you haven't yet made. What's the worst this could possibly look like? And that's what goes into that initial resource consent, which is how you end up with some pretty terrifying numbers. And we call that a conservative assessment, but obviously it's a terrifying assessment. So as we've gone through this design process, and particularly as we have focused in on a specific application with a specific tenant, it's allowed us to really narrow down the set of effects. And that design refinement process has allowed us to really get comfortable with some very concrete reductions, specifically at least a 60% reduction in the number of generators on the site, and at least a 70% reduction in the water take for the site. And we will be going through a consent variation process to actually finalize and formalize those, so that will be the new resource consent. And then finally, we end up at a building consent, which is the actual thing that we're going to build and the actual effects that it should have, which again will be smaller, legally, it must be smaller than that total envelope that we produced in the initial resource consent, and then those reduced numbers in the variations, and then finally the design that we end up with. So to that end, this is the latest actual design. And what you see here is pretty similar when we zoom out this far, because it's a 49-hectare site, so the details might get a little lost. We still see that grid exit point, our GXP, in the foreground. It looks a little different because we've worked very closely with TransPower over the past year to come up with a design that really represents how they want things to be built, because ultimately TransPower is responsible for operating that GXP. So we pay for building it, and then we essentially give it to them to operate. So we want it to be something that they are comfortable supporting, and that's exactly what it is, and we'll get a little more into what is in that as we go through this. But the biggest change comes in the rest of the site, where you see that we've got one long data center building down the middle that will actually be internally divided into 4 of what we call data halls. So these are just sort of separate units, but it's all under one roof. That building in total is significantly smaller than the 6 buildings that you saw previously. So the size of the building has actually shrunk significantly. And then on each side, we have a lot of the infrastructure required to support this. So to the right, those 4 blocks are actually the dry cooling system. And the dry part of that is very important, because it means that most of the time we are not using any water at all, and we'll come to when and why we use water. And then on the left side of it, you see these long structures that are actually battery storage systems. So that's energy storage that is not generators. It is just batteries. And it is actually there primarily to support the grid, not the site. And again, I'll speak to why exactly that is there. So to the GXP. The GXP itself is being built to support 360 MVA, or approximately 350 megawatts. That is the site capacity. That will be the site capacity. There is no growth plan from that. There's not a stage 2, a phase 2, whatever you might be concerned about. There's no gigawatt. This is the site. And again, as we've spoken about, when we don't know quite what we're building, the numbers are huge. But as we focus in on a specific application with a specific tenant, we can get much more concrete. This is as concrete as we can get. This design represents exactly how TransPower wants this built. We're using transformers out of the standard TransPower transformers. Makes sparing much easier, for example. So we have 3 transformers that are the stuff that power flows through most of the time. We have a 4th one there that's as a redundant power channel should one of those fail. We don't run them all at the same time, so 3 of them are live at any given time. That's how we end up with 360 MVA. So let's talk a little bit more about power, since we're on the subject. There's there's three things to understand about this, because there are a lot of legitimate concerns around the supply of power in the country. And so I want to talk about how we get more generation. In New Zealand's power system, countries across the world have all sorts of different ways of dealing with their grid, dealing with generation. They handle it in all sorts of different ways. In New Zealand, the gen-tailers are motivated to build new capacity primarily by one thing, and that is big long-term contracts to supply. And as individuals, none of us is able to provide that. We can't show up and say, I am going to buy 100 megawatts for the next 15 years for my house. But we can show up and say, we're going to buy 350 megawatts for the next 15 years for our data center. And what that allows them to do is long-term planning and long-term investment to build out the necessary capacity, particularly renewable capacity, to support us, but also to simply build additional capacity beyond that. And that is exactly what is happening. So to be very concrete about this, between now and 2030, Mercury alone is going to add more than 1.5 gigawatts of sustainable capacity. So when we say we are taking 350, there are gigawatts coming onto the grid in the same time frame, in part because we are signing these very long-term, very large contracts. I would love for there to be additional ways to motivate the gen-tailers to add capacity, but this is simply the best one that we have available today. Secondly, people are rightly concerned about power costs for their own consumption at home. A lot of that increase in cost has come not from the generation side, but from the transmission costs. That's the two components that are in essentially what you pay for. So there's producing the power, and then there's delivering it to you. And it's the delivering it to you part that has been getting more expensive. One of the things to understand is that as people at home, our distribution costs, our transmission costs are subsidized. So we don't actually pay the whole cost of that experience. This data center will. All these large off-takers, including us, we pay 100% of our transmission costs, no subsidies. That lowers the transmission cost for everyone because it's the same infrastructure delivering it all, but now there's more money coming in to compensate for that. So that's the second thing in paying our own way. And then finally, I mentioned that that battery storage system is there primarily to support the grid. That happens in a few ways. So the first way is we have an AI workload in the data center that is kind of notorious for having really steep what are called ramps, how fast its power draw goes up, and more importantly for the grid, how fast it goes down. And when we talk about big ramps, what we mean is like 50 megawatts up or down in under a minute. That is incredibly destabilizing if the grid sees it. So we can't let the grid see it. And so what the battery storage does is allows us to absorb in either direction, that change, that ramp. So that from the grid's perspective, it's a very gradual up and down, something that it's able to deal with, even though from the data center side of things, it's really going crazy up and down. So that's number one in protecting the grid. But the second thing, it actually has nothing to do with the data center and everything to do with grid stability. The grid in Southland is less stable than it is in the rest of the country. That shows up in one example as really wide frequency range. This is alternating current, so it's got a cycle up and down. And where it should be at 50 hertz all the time, in Southland in particular, it's varying between 45 and 55, so it's a very large range. And that's a reflection of the grid stability. It's not the only metric for it, but it's one that we can talk about very easily. And so we're going to put the battery system into what's called grid following mode to provide voltage support. This has nothing to do with us. This is entirely around making the grid more stable. So in order to stabilize the grid, we will feed power into it or pull power out of it into the storage system simply to keep that frequency in a much narrower range, to keep the voltage in a much narrower range. Again, this is something that we're working through specifically with TransPower, with their support, and really with their blessing, because it helps them, although it does nothing in effect for the data center. And So those three areas, right, we're producing, stimulating more generation, we're paying all of our transmission costs, and we're providing direct grid support. This is how we ensure that the grid is better with us on it than it was before we got there. So let's get into some of the specifics of how we're going to reduce our footprint. These are getting into the exact numbers that are in the original resource consent and where we expect to land with the variations that are going in the next, I would say, 2 months. Is that right? Yeah, 2 months. So firstly, we had resource consent for, still have resource consent for 84 generators. These are large diesel generators, 2.5 to 3 megawatts each. As part of the consenting process, again, being worst case scenario, we have to do modeling that includes running 84 generators 24/7, 365 days a year. That's when I say that we have to model scenarios that are not actually feasible, that would require 1.8 million liters of diesel fuel a day. We simply cannot do that. So even on the face of it, like running 84 generators all the time, simply not going to happen. But 84 generators represented the total site capacity at the time we were doing the modeling, and the requirements are that we model all of them running all the time as part of the resource consent process. But as we've gone through our design, we've been able to reduce the number that we require, in particular because that battery system is there, and it can provide the backup that we need for the short periods of time that is generally going to be required. So we anticipate less than 34. And when we say we anticipate less than 34, or the 60% reduction in the number of generators, that's what's going to go into the variation. Where do we end up? That's going to show up in the building consent. But again, if we have the variation granted at 34, it means that we have to be under that number. That 84 number is gone. So 60% reduction in the number of generators. Secondly, on the water, and I'll get a little bit more into how we use water as we go through this, but we're looking at a minimum of 70% reduction in water. I'm trying to drive that down even further, but right now we're comfortable saying it's going to be at least reduced by 70%. So that puts us at under 66 million liters of water. So this puts us into dairy farm territory in terms of the amount of water that we're taking. And just to be clear, this water is rainwater primarily. We've looked at potentially taking groundwater for this. Still being investigated. We're not going to get 66 million liters of water off the roof of the building every year. But again, if we can get it down small enough, it'll be entirely rainwater, and that's certainly our goal. And then just a couple of metrics to have in your head. You're going to hear these terms thrown around a lot when you look at anything around data centers. It's PUE and WUE. And they are metrics on the efficiency of how you're consuming resources. And you want them both to be small. So for PUE, it's just a measure of how much of your power is going to what's actually doing work inside the data center, and how much of it is going to things like cooling the data center, or powering the lights, or whatever it might be. Losses in the transformers. There are all sorts of ways that power disappears. And so for us to say here that we want a PUE below 1.1, and this is an annualized number because it goes up and down with temperature, as we'll talk about, we are really efficient. This is a world-class data center. And it means that we're using our power really efficiently. But there's a game that a lot of folks have played with this, which is why WUE exists, which is that they can consume water to reduce their energy consumption by using the water to cool systems more effectively. And we will do that too, but at a much smaller scale. And so what people were doing is they're saying, look at our incredible PUE, but also we're consuming 500 million liters of water a year. But don't look at that. So we want to see both at the same time. That's how you know that people aren't hiding anything in their resource consumption. So we're targeting a really low PUE and a really low WUE, which is the amount of water that you're consuming for a unit of energy. And we're going to be world-class on both of those. And the way that we can be world-class on both of those at the same time is because it is cold. And a lot of these are going to come back to Invercargill is cold, Southland is cold. That's why we're able to achieve these kinds of efficiencies. If you build a data center where it is hot, you're in Singapore, you're in Arizona, you're in Saudi Arabia, you cannot achieve these kinds of efficiencies. It is not possible. Something has to give. And so for us, that means you don't build them there, full stop, because you cannot do it efficiently. You cannot do it responsibly. So the reason to build here is because doing it here means that we can do it efficiently. We can have a very light resource footprint. We can be quiet. We can have a small impact on the environment and the communities where we are. If we were building this in Auckland even, if we were building this somewhere in Australia, we couldn't make those kinds of promises, and so we just couldn't do it. So the final thing I want to hit on is people concerned about noise. Again, these are legitimate concerns. We see what's happening in the US, we see what's happening in Australia. In the US in particular, a lot of the data centers that you see in the news that are really harming the communities and the environment around them, those data centers were built in the wrong place, and in many cases they are simply operating illegally. They are running their generators 24/7. They're running gas turbine systems in the middle of residential neighborhoods. They've made no allowances for the community around them. They're consuming huge amounts of water because it's hot, right? They're doing everything wrong. That is a choice that they have made. There's nothing inherent in the technology that requires that to happen. They have chosen to do that. It is wrong. They should make a different choice. They haven't. But we have. And we've done so because it is the way to get this infrastructure built responsibly. And we want to actually show the world that it can be done responsibly, and this is how. So when we talk about our noise limits, obviously this is all referenced from the background noise that's inherent in the system. So when we talk about the background noise in Auckland in terms of their permitted zones, that's 60 to 65 dB. It's just louder in Auckland than it is in Southland. I don't know if that's a surprise to anybody. But you'll notice that the World Health Organization guidelines are actually below that. So it's louder in most cities than is healthy for a lot of folks. That is what it is. So the Southland District Plan sets a limit at night of 40 dB. I am currently louder than 40 dB, just so everyone is very clear. 40 dB is not a lot of noise. That's a calm conversation between friends, not someone being amplified. So it's actually very quiet. And we are required to be at or below that, and we are going to be. How are we going to do that? Well, number one, say it with me, it's cold. So what that means is that we get to use dry coolers and we get to run our fans slower. Running the fans slower means that they're quieter. So simply being cold means that we can be quieter. We have also built, or are building rather, a 6-meter bund around the entire site. In part, that was done because the neighbors were concerned about noise. They were concerned about seeing this data center right next to them, but they were really concerned about the noise. And so we committed to building a 6-meter landscaped bund. It ends up being about 20 hectares of the site is just this noise and visual barrier. So when you are outside this site, you will not see the data center. You'll see the towers coming up out of it. That's about it. You will not see the data center. And you will also not really hear much from the data center because it's already quite quiet, as we've gone to great pains in our design to make it so, but also because there's a bund there that's absorbing a lot of that noise. And that process of noise assessment, noise modeling, again, absolute worst case scenario, everything running all the time at maximum fan RPM, all the rest of it. So when we say we're committing to be quieter than that, it's under those worst case circumstances. We still have to be quieter than that. But in reality, we are not going to be running things 100% all the time. We should, in fact, never be running things at 100%, day or night, because it's cold. And that's just the reality of building in a location like this. So I want to hit on one more thing about the cooling system, which is modern AI-focused data centers in particular. It's not only for AI data centers, but AI data centers absolutely are liquid cooled with what's called direct to chip. So they have a cold plate, that's a metal plate attached directly to the chip. It's got channels that coolant gets pushed through. The coolant takes the heat away, goes out through the big radiators outside, and then back into the system. So it's completely sealed. And in fact, doesn't have any water in it. It's got glycol in it, like your car for a coolant system. So that system has to be extremely tight, cannot be contaminated, cannot leak, or the data center simply breaks. So that's what's inside that closed loop. When we talk about consuming water, what we're talking about is water that we sometimes would need to spray onto the inlet side of the cooling system to evaporate and provide an additional cooling boost. We only need to do that when the outside temperature is too high, meaning high 20s, low 30s, where the gap between the 35C coolant that we need coming out of those chillers and the ambient air temperature is too small. We need a big gap to dump a lot of the heat. If it gets too hot, we spray a little extra water. And that means that it's minute by minute, right? Right this moment do we need additional water to spray. And if we don't, then we don't spray it. And when we have to model, again, it's very conservative. So we have to model out to 35C, even though the record temperature is 32. And it's only the exact times that it is that hot, not all that day or all that week or all that month. That very moment, we spray the extra water. And that water is purified beyond a standard that is actually safe for human consumption. That's a strange thing to say, but water naturally has minerals in it. The water that you drink has minerals in it. It has minerals in it because water absorbs minerals. It actually leaches minerals out of the things that it goes through, including your body. So if there's not enough minerals in the water, it will find them in your body. It will take the calcium out of your bones. It'll take potassium and sodium out of your nervous system. It is not safe to drink water that clean. But it is what's required when we have to do this coolant, because we need to ensure that it does not drop calcium or other distillates onto the radiators and drop their efficiency. We have to clean them. So that water has to be incredibly clean. And so what that ultimately means is the water consumption is very low. The water that we produce is astoundingly clean. And it gets evaporated and that's it, it's gone. There's no black sludge coming from some illegal dumping that we're doing. It's just not there. It's not part of the system. As I said, we can make different choices around how these things get built such that we do not harm the environment around us, and that's exactly what we've done. So one of the other factors has nothing to do with anything around power consumption or water consumption or even noise. It just comes around safety. There's a school near the site on Flora Road, and early on in the discussions with the neighbors, there was a lot of concern about having hundreds of trucks a day driving back and forth on Flora Road. That is a real problem. And so what we did was we actually bought additional land adjacent to the site such that we could build a new road out the other side of the site, completely bypassing Flora Road, to ensure that none of those trucks go anywhere near the school. And that's what we're doing. So that's what you see here. And when you see the diggers moving, that's actually where they have to start, is clearing off the site, and they have to go in and out through the road that we're building there. And that road stays there. That's the access road afterwards. Another concern, again, has nothing to do with the environment, is around jobs. And I wanted to talk a little bit about where these jobs come from. So obviously during construction, there's this huge number of people, right? 1,200 people, maybe more. Our friends from Naylor Love hopefully can speak a little bit to that. But it's an enormous group of people. But the question long term is how many of those jobs stay? But I would propose to you that there's another question, which is what are those jobs? How well do those jobs pay? Are those jobs that you would actually want to have? So when we talk about there being 250 or so long-term jobs, what we mean are trades, right? These are electricians, these are plumbers. This is an enormous amount of physical plant that has to be constantly maintained. If you're wondering, that's why you can't put a data center in space. These things need constant care and feeding. They simply do. They break all the time. And the only way that they keep running is because people are there to keep them running. And that means skilled plumbers, skilled electricians. And it also means a new type of worker, which is a data center operator or a data center technician. There are a lot of these people that are going to be required. What are they doing? They're moving through the data center, recabling. They are swapping out spares when they break. They're troubleshooting technical problems as they arise. Again, constant care and feeding for these things. And all of these people have to live locally. All of them are being paid well above a living wage. If you look at what data center technicians get paid in other places, it's a lot of money because their job is very technical and very demanding. And I think it's safe to say we're going to be partnering with SIT on this to actually produce those people, train people up to be data center operators, to be data center technicians, not just for us, but for the whole country and ultimately the whole region, right? This becomes a center for producing exactly the sorts of highly technical, highly paid workers that are in demand. All right, so I said 1,200 people, that's a lot of people to house. So we are actively seeking houses and accommodation. I think that's backwards, right? It should be datagrid.nz/housing. Pretend it does, pretend it says that. Datagrid.nz/housing. And then this is the Nail of Love section, so I'm going to hand it over to you if that's all right, Johnny.
Thank you, Ben, and good morning. Johnny Eames, General Manager, Strategic Partnerships and Pre-Construction for Nail of Love, and I also have my colleague here, Greg Boland, General Manager of the South Island. So, yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here today to just very briefly talk about the impact and the opportunity for the construction cycle of this very large project. Just a little bit about Nail of Love. We are currently the preferred contractor. We have built data centres. We've built 3 or 4 of them in Auckland, so we do have the expertise to do that. However, we have partnered with the company Vinci Construction to help support us through, again, this very large project. We like to say that we are local to the area. We're currently building that picture there at the moment. I see Nick, our project manager, is down there, the Invercargill Museum, and we've done HW Tower. So we have engagement with the community already and all of you good people in this room. So we just look to continue that, and we think we've got a good grounding to help this project succeed. Now, what's quite evident is this project will need you. It'll need the local supply chain to make this a success. One of our biggest challenges, as Ben alluded to, is that the sheer number of construction workers that we will need. And yeah, that is going to be one of our biggest challenges, and then the impact beyond that with accommodation, which I'll talk to a little bit more. So, and overall, really, this one of the biggest drivers for this project is program. So, program is really important for Datagrid and the end user. So, you know, we'll be needing to make decisions based around program to make sure there's capability and capacity through all the suppliers and the labour market. To give you a bit more of an idea of those types of packages, this is very high level. It's well, it's not a standard building, it's a very technical building, but it covers the same packages that you would normally see in a construction project, which is, you know, your groundworks and civils and structure and concrete. So to give you a bit of idea of timing, we are at 10% of the of the design phase, so we need more design to start procurement. But those early packages will be starting to release and procure in Q4 this year. So we're doing slight market engagement just to understand capability and capacity. But in Q4 this year, we will start to procure those. And then we just really work our way through. Probably the top 4 boxes there, structural steel, roofing and cladding, those 2 will be procured or getting an understanding in Q4 this year. And then we move into more of the technical areas of the electrical and the mechanical and the hydraulics. And this is where we start to see our peak numbers in the construction period, which is where we do have the peak of around 1,000 or 1,200, if not a little bit more. And certainly the electrician side, it's data centers are very complex, and there's a lot of cable and connections to be done. So that is where we start to see the peak of that labour, which is more towards the end of next year, 27, and then through 28. So that's where the peaks of that labour really start to come. So the procurement of those more services packages will be earlier next year, kind of Q1 next year. Just around engagement, how the question is how do you get involved? We are undertaking market engagement now as the design comes through, but we're trying to get ahead and just understand that capacity. So we want you all to register your capability through. I'll actually come how you can do that, and. Yeah, we need you to, or we want to share to you the understanding of that package timing and when the resource and material and product is required. And what you can do now is kind of understand your own planning and your future workload, so to see how that can come in. Because what we'll need you to do is to engage with us, with the main subcontractors, because the labour market, whether it's an electrician, whether it's steel, whether it's concrete, reinforcing steel, we will need the local supply chain, because that also helps with easing the accommodation constraints that we will foresee that we'll need to address. How do you engage? We will be initiating a portal that will be with No Love and Datagrid, so that's where information will be posted, and you can register your interest and your capability that you can provide in these early stages. So just moving across to what does it do to the local economy? This just won't be a benefit to the construction site. When you're doing large projects like this, it will be a catalyst for the business community. The demand on the local services will be very, very high. So, we've talked about accommodation. We do need to come up with solutions. We don't stand here today and say we've got those solutions, but we need to engage with you to understand what solutions there are. Just the knock-on effect of the hospitality and food within the local economy will be really huge. Those workers won't want to be in a work all day and be in a bedroom at night. They'll want to come and engage in the local community and go to restaurants and so forth. We'll have impact on the local transport. We'll need shuttles. Taxis to and from airports. There'll be a big demand, so a big opportunity in that space. The size of the site that it is, we'll need full catering facilities. It'll be an extensive site setup because we need to make sure we get the culture right where people want to be there and working. So there'll be an extensive site setup there, so plenty of opportunity there. And then there's all the other peripheral resources and labour that we'll need as well, just to keep the site going. So as I said, there's going to be peaking around 1,000, 1,200 staff as we work through the project in those key areas. Really, in summary, to make this a success make the project a success, we will need every one of you to help do that, and we really just want to be the ones that help bring everyone together with our local connections, and we just would really encourage you to reach out to us through those channels, and we'll advise through the Southland Business Chamber to how you can do that. And I think one of the key things, we see this as a real opportunity. As a company, we're a national company. We see our resources, our key people leave to go to Australia or other parts of the world to have an opportunity to build on a big project like this. And Datagrid is going to provide this to our construction industry. We'll be able to work with the institute, the schools here, and really bring on our next, engage with the community, bring on our next a lot of trade people, because it's a fantastic career, and we look forward to working with everyone to achieve it together. And I think that really covers my part.
Okay, just a couple more slides. Thank you all for bearing with us. The key thing to understand about the whole process is that it is extensive and invasive and sometimes overly conservative, I feel, but of course I'm on the side of it that would think that, aren't I? What comes out of it are legally binding conditions and actual measurement to ensure that we are adhering to the conditions. And then there is a process for review and, of course, for punishing us for our misdeeds, should those come up. But I want to get actually very specific about some of these, because I advocate strongly for transparency in everything that we do. There should be nothing that we do that is kept secret. NDAs with district council that say they can't talk about the project or who's involved or all that sort of stuff. That to me is nonsense. I actually directly asked the mayor last week that he ensure that everything that can be published, which should be most of it, if not all of it, is published unredacted as soon as it is possible to do so. So if something's approved, if something's submitted, it should be put onto the Datagrid page that's already on the district council's website without delay and without redaction. So to that end, if you see things that show up there that are redacted, or you're concerned that something should be there that is not, then you should absolutely raise that, because we are committed to ensuring that you have full access to that information. But in terms of how we run the site, generators running, water being consumed, power being consumed, et cetera, we'll be publishing that information for you, again, in public. So you will see how much of the resources that we are allowed, we are consuming. And again, you'll have all the data that you need to make a decision on whether we're adhering to our conditions or whether there's something that needs to change. Do we want to keep going? We're on a roll? All right. So one of the parts of this project that we haven't talked about so far is the Tasman Ring, which looks like a Tasman line here, but we're going to fix that. This is actually stage one of this. So it's a direct fiber connection subsea cable between Invercargill and Melbourne. This is the first subsea cable system built that does not land in Auckland. All other international connectivity lands in Auckland right now. So when you are wondering why your internet is slow, it's because it has to go to Auckland before it can go to the rest of the world. So this is direct connection to Melbourne. It is a significant amount of capacity measured in the number of fibers that are in the bundle that actually gets laid down. And it means that we will have proper, resilient fiber connectivity for the country, right? Should there be a significant, say, seismic event in Auckland that damages a lot of those cable systems, currently, there is no alternative. That's where everything is. This provides it. So it is national level resilience for our connectivity. Obviously, it also provides a really high performance link for our tenant to get to Australia and then out to the rest of the world. And so Remy has a very different view of the world than a lot of us. We're in the center of it. So this is the Great Southern Route. And one of the reasons that this is important is that you see it connects the west coast of the United States through Invercargill and then finally up into the Middle East without going through the South China Sea. And that is of critical national security importance, of critical global security importance. Cable systems that go through the South China Sea can be targeted and have been targeted. There are in fact specialized ships specifically for cutting cable systems, and they have been busy. So by bypassing that route, this provides a much more secure, much more reliable connection. So this is not simply an ornamental cable systems that we can say, hey, the internet is faster in Invercargill. This actually provides global security for connectivity by going around major conflict zones. So that's the whole deal. The one point I would make in closing is Southland builds big things historically. Southland built Manapuri. You built TY. And this is the next thing. This is the next big project that matters to the economy, matters to the global standing of New Zealand, and Southland is going to build it. So thank you. Obviously, we've got more to talk through, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions, and we're not going anywhere. And we will, in fact, be back regularly to meet with folks, so this is not your last opportunity to speak with us if you have questions or concerns. Thank you.
I'm on. Okay, thank you guys. That was really informative. I wanted to start, I think, with Remy and kind of like the who are you, who is Datagrid New Zealand, because you know we're hearing online or that you're some big Elon Musk global rich person that's coming to Southland to destroy us. So we want to kind of put aside the myths to get to know the people behind the project and understand about your company. Will you be paying tax in New Zealand? Are you this big corporate who's coming to take over the world? So Remy, Datagrid New Zealand is basically a startup company. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
15 of you, currently based between Auckland and Invercargill.
Correct.
But you are moving into the HWR Tower to have your permanent office
Absolutely.
down here, which is very exciting. And Mani, your lovely wife, who was sitting in the front row with us, live in Auckland, and this was your baby. And before this, can you tell us a little bit about your background? So you have already done a cable before.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry, and again, thanks for the invite. I'm originally from the south as well, but the south of France, so pretty different region. Moved to Pacific Islands 30 years ago. I met my wife, Mania, in New Caledonia. Our boy was born in Noumea. And in New Caledonia and French Polynesia, I developed a company called Intalia, and basically we are building digital infrastructures like fiber to the home, mobile networks, this kind of stuff. And built my first subsea cable between Noumea and Sydney. That was back in 2009, 2,100 kilometers. And I built a second one between Tahiti and Hawaii, 4,500 kilometers. That was in 2011. And then I had this idea to basically build a new trans-Pacific cable connecting Australia, New Zealand to USA. So I asked Mania, do you want to move to New Zealand? And she said yes. Our boy was 8, and perfect opportunity for him to have a much better English than his father. So we moved to Queenstown, lovely place, obviously, and it took me about 4 years to raise $350 million US. I had 5, so I put all in, and so big risk. And I met in Queenstown Sir Ian Edgar. I don't know if you're familiar with this person, fantastic person, and he helped me a lot. I met also with Malcolm Dick, originally from Invercargill, but moved to Auckland. He was the founder of Call Plus and Slingshot, so a great entrepreneur. And I've met with Greg Tomlinson from Christchurch, probably the best entrepreneur in the country. And all together we work, and after 4 years we raised the funding and we built that cable from Mangawhai Heads to Sydney, Hawaii, and Portland, Oregon, 15,000 kilometers. It is still the longest cable, private cable on the planet. And at that time, we were very short of money, obviously, and we tried to design it the best way. And inside the cable, you have to decide how many fiber pairs you're going to include. Now, 15 years ago, the reasoning was to say one fiber pair is good enough for 10 million people. And so we were connecting Australia, New Zealand, 30 million people. So we said, okay, let's put 3 fiber pairs, even if market shares, we won't have more than 50%, but let's put 3 fiber pairs. And we were wrong because obviously we didn't know about AI and this kind of stuff. So right now, a data center like this one is going to use 2 fiber pairs. So it's like equivalent of 20 million people. And so New Zealand needs more connectivity, obviously. On the north segment, Auckland to Sydney, but also on the south segment, which is why we're building the Tasman Ring. Now, the beauty with our Waikiki cable is that we sold capacity to almost every American hyperscalers. Google, Microsoft, Meta, eBay, whatever, AWS. And in 2020, I've heard for the first time this word AI from those Americans. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, it's going to be very big. I said, how big? It's super big. And we will need super large data centers. And it's going to be a revolution. Everybody's going to use AI. That was in 2020 again. And they said, we're going to have a major issue with the cooling. Cooling is going to be a problem because of the density of the racks. And we will need to find a location, sustainable location that will not use too much water. And so I've heard about the project in Iceland, Norway, Finland, Denmark, the Arctic countries. And I thought, oh my God, I understand it's not too bad. But I know also a place called Invercargill, and not too far away from Queenstown. And maybe we could, use that place because it's going to be the most sustainable data center in the whole Asia Pacific, and I mean it. Any other location in Sydney, in Jakarta, in Singapore will use more water, more electricity for the cooling. So we have a huge advantage here in Southland. And so decided to hire a company, an American company called ICOM. They have a huge presence in New Zealand. And I said, guys, I like to try to acquire a section here in Southland, not too far away from Invercargill, but please help me to do the site selection process. And to build this kind of thing, there is a lot of criteria. 50 hectares was, the right size. But we really want to be just right under those power lines from Transpower, coming from Manapuri going to Tiwai. We had to be outside the tsunami zone. So I'm sorry, guys, Invercargill is inside the tsunami zone. Don't be scared. But we have to be outside it, which is 15-meter altitude minimum. Outside the flood zone in Makarewa. There's many criteria, access to 2 highways, outside the airport corridor. In the worst case scenario, where there's a plane crash, And so those guys came and said, there's only one option. It's in Makarewa, it's here, 342 Flora Road. And so I met with the owner. He was retired, guy is now in Wanaka, and we made that deal. So we purchased the land, and people told me, yeah, but it's farmland, Remy, you cannot build anything on it. But still, I acquired the land, and
And this is 2020, isn't it? So
2020.
just looking at
Yep.
that timeline on how.
2021. 2021, we acquired the land. And 2022, we did the blessing of the land with WowPay, and this is where I met for the first time Ben. And obviously, we worked with the government to get a resource consent, and they proposed me the fast track process. I said, what is this? And they said, well, we can give you the resource consent in 6 months. And I said, what about the neighbors? Nope, they don't have to say anything. It's fast track, it's the decision of the government. And I said, I'm not sure. I want this because I think it's a very important project. We need to talk to the community. And so I said, thank you, but no thank you. I will talk to the SDC and ICC council, and we'll do the classic resource consent process. And they said, yeah, but it's going to take 2.5 years, 3 years maybe. I said, it's okay. We have to do it the right way. And so SDC told us that they have identified 17 affected parties, neighbors, plus the 4 RUNACAM, so 21 in total. And so we met those people one by one, several times, in their kitchen, in our place.
And that was part of Fiona's role. So you
and that is part of Fiona's roles. And,
yeah, so she's local and was brought on to work with the neighbours and just hear all their concerns.
And May, in a second, Fiona, I'd like you really to explain the relationship. And so initially, we proposed a pretty large design for the data center, and basically the neighbors, very nice people, but they said, noise is an issue. We need you guys to reduce the noise. Road management. He said, how many trucks we're going to have during construction? I said, probably 100 per day. So I said, no, Flora Road, 100 trucks a day. It's not possible. There's a primary school over there. And visual. We don't want to see this. Even if it's a beautiful data center, please try to find a way. So we came back after 6 months with a new design, saying, okay, we're going to build this 6-meter high bund all around the site. I think, Fiona, we're going to have 200,000 native plants, so you're not going to see anything. And it will also mitigate the sound, which is great, mitigate the sound and mitigate the visual. And the major problem was really the traffic management, because this section has only one access on Flora Road. And so we find a solution. We acquire a land south of the property, and so now we are building this road to access directly Highway 98.
And that's currently down Taylor Road's gravel at the moment. You're going to be paving
absolutely.
all of that.
And so when we came back to the neighbors with this solution, they said, fantastic, thank you very much. And all of them, and I'm very thankful, they signed a written approval and said, we agree with the project, please do it. Mm-hmm. But more than that, it's not please do it, it's that we love it. And we're going to help you to make it happen, right? So fantastic journey so far.
And they're still very supportive. Fiona, you work closely, sorry, the microphones are over there. You work closely with those neighbours, don't you? And so obviously with all the concerns that are out in the community at the moment, are you hearing from them that they are feeling those concerns, or are they comfortable with the information they've been given?
Yes, so
I think that is that Remy's mic?
Yeah.
You're rubbing, Remy.
We'll get mic 9 on.
Yep, you're all good to go, Fiona.
no?
No, excuse us for their technical issues. Yeah.
Okay, hello everybody, Fiona Smith. I'm the environmental project manager, and I live locally, live in Winton. Yes, met up with Remy early last year to do the neighbour engagement piece of work. So I have strong relationships with all the neighbours around our site. The affected neighbours, like Remy said, were identified by the authorities. They weren't identified by Datagrid. And over the last 2 years, I've come to know those neighbours very well, and I'm in constant communication with them. Some of them talk to me 3 or 4 times a week, especially with some of the misinformation out there in the community. Just checking in and just feeling safe. These are, good, solid Southland people. A lot of them are retired. A lot of them are elderly, and a lot of them are actually. Have concerns around some of the content that is out there, especially around their involvement in the project, which, as a Southlander, I take very seriously. They're a very important part of the Datagrid team, and they've been instrumental right through the whole process in the final design. Everything that Ben went through and Remy has been talking about has been shared with our neighbours. There has been when we first met with them, it was, this is what we want to do. If it was to turn up, what do we need to do to make it acceptable? And so all the design changes that led to the current resource consent was driven by them. And with the commitment from Datagrid to them that if we could do it better, we will. And that is where the resource consent variation piece of work is coming in. That's what's been fed constantly through to the design team. That's when I sit in the meetings and when somebody says, oh, maybe we could lower the bund here, I just shake my head. It's non-negotiable. That bund doesn't get moved. There are things that we've made and committed to those neighbours that is actually the heart of what the project is. So yes, I stay in close contact with them. I'm also in contact with any neighbour that has reached out to me. I visit in the evenings. I put on a lot of weight with scones and cheese rolls last year.
And you've been having at the Makaririwa Country Club. You've had some,
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also are the main stakeholder face for Datagrid with iwi as well. So, and the relationships that get built there with the 4 runaka, Waihopai runaka being the lead, and we're dealing with Te Marama as well.
So just on that, Fiona, and I'm not sure if it's for you or Remy, but talking a little bit about social licence. Obviously, you're not up and running yet, so it's a little bit early but there's been a thought process around a working group with iwi to set up to look at what you can give back to the community. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yes, so with talking with iwi, the local, the 4 runaka have come together and suggested that we develop Te Rewa, which is a working group, and that is how we will communicate through to the lead runaka, which is Waihopai, and back through to all the other runaka in Murihiku. So that piece of work, as we move through the design process, is part of our consultation, part of how we will work with them and bring them into parts of the design as well, especially around the cultural sort of narrative into our landscaping and into some of the way of the visuals of what the final build will look like. So yes, that Te Rewa group also is a working group in an educational space as well.
Great, and just touching on the educational space, one of the other, consultations you've had, because I just wanted to get across that since 2020 you have been consulting with people. You've had neighbours, you've had the business community. I think this is our 4th event that we've been able to get businesses to hear about the scale, the timelines. We've tried to keep you up to date all along the process. You're working with iwi, with SIT, so in the last, I think what was last year, they extended their AI course by putting in a paper around data centre operations. So all of this consultation has been going on, I guess, in the community. looking back now, Remy, with I guess what's happening online, because it is primarily online, is there anything that you would have done differently with those communications? Are you thinking it could have gone wider? Because we worked with you for a long time.
Sure.
Obviously, is it a small minority, or are you hoping to do public meetings in the future once you've got final design? What does it look like from here?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important, Ben, you said it, to be super transparent. So this is a commitment. And yes, we've been engaging with the Southland Business Chamber. We've decided to organize a public meeting once a month at the Makarewa Country Club. So it's going to be fun. There is some protest in New Zealand. There's protest globally, but let's focus about New Zealand. I hear two messages. One is about data protection. People are scared to see their own data without any protection, and I think this is a very fair comment, and I fully agree with this. I call it New Zealand sovereign AI, and I believe that the current government and the next one will really have to work on it. I think it's important for us in New Zealand to make sure that our data are protected and potentially store and compute here in this country and not overseas. That is my own point of view. And the second message I hear about the protester is we want clean data. And I cannot agree more. And I told them, why do you think I've selected Makarewa to build this data center? Just because it will be more sustainable than any other location in Asia Pacific. So we can be pro-anti-data center, that's a different subject. But if we think data center are important, this is the most sustainable location. And I can tell you that AI industry is a very small industry. But I can tell you that everyone right now in USA knows about Makarewa. They know exactly where it is.
Does Trump know?
Yeah, and I don't know if Trump knows, but they understand the potential is massive. Why? Because we are in New Zealand, stable country. We are in Southland with, a specific climate which is super helpful for data centers. We are part of the Five Eyes. We are far away from conflict zone, and this is very important. I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi, and I have to relocate because it's not so safe. So we are safe. The last image about the Great Southern Route means that in the cargo and Southland, we are not at the end of the world at all. We are exactly located in the middle of this Great Southern Route going from USA to Australia, Singapore, India, Middle East. So we have a huge potential here. And I'm trying to convince some people, especially investors, to believe in this vision. We can do it here in New Zealand. So Australia, I tell you, they have huge vision. We are building 360 MVA data center. They are currently talking about 3 gigawatt.
Just on that, so the 1 gigawatt initial data center, this isn't going to be a 360, then you're going to clip on some bits on the side and then it's going to grow to 1. This is it?
This is it, and it's been it from day one. Okay. Because in Makarewa, we cannot access to a gigawatt, so it's not from us. Okay. We from day one said 280, 300, but maximum is 360 MVA.
So I don't have to get you back up on the stage in 5 years and go, now it's 1 gigawatt, you lie.
No, it's
right.
Not a gigawatt. And so the Australians are building massively. They are attracting a lot of skills, and they are attracting a lot of New Zealand skills.
We want to keep them here.
Yeah, I don't think it's good. I think that we should do the opposite. I think that we should, develop this kind of project and ask, them to come back, or even to Australian to work here. We're going to pay more than any construction company, but also the skills to run data center are very are very, there's a lack of resources right now. SIT, they understand very well. University of Otago, Canterbury, they understand it very well. They would like to train kids and new courses. They would like also to train international students. They like international students to come back. So
That's
I think
where
it's
I see the, us being the digital gateway, but also the potential of the next generation of children coming through to be able to train in Southland, keep those skills in Southland, and then like Ben and I had discussed, take those skills and then work anywhere around the world. I just wanted to touch on where you're talking about other data centres in New Zealand. Obviously the Amazon one in Auckland, they ran out of money and they've left a huge, big, you're going to assure us that that's not going to happen out at Makariri? We're not going to run out of money and leave just a big
So I
nothing?
will not comment on Amazon. I don't think they are running out of money.
No.
I think they potentially realized that Auckland was not the right location. I would not build a data center in Auckland myself. I don't think it's the right location. I mean, I respect all the guys building data center in Auckland or Sydney, but I won't do it. Sometimes, when Americans are asking questions about New Zealand, I said it's quite simple. We have two islands. We have population in the north, power in the south. Where do you want to go? South. And the climate. So I really believe that we need data center in Auckland to serve New Zealand community. But here we are building a data center that will serve Asia Pacific. So it's a different scale. And so I'm very happy also by the support of the current government. They understand the vision, and they understand that New Zealand could become a world champion. I mean it. The gentailers, very supportive. You know we have an agreement with Mercury. They are now a partner. They decided to invest in the project, but we are talking to the other gentailers. Everyone is asking questions about this, because if we can demonstrate it is feasible, they will invest into more power generation. Currently, we have around 11 gigawatt of power generation in New Zealand.
And I think that can give people some assurance when Mercury, which is government-owned, can invest in this project that it's not going to fall over and leave us with it.
And you mentioned, Sherry, the subsea cable. This is going to be a game changer. We need that cable for the data center, but it will be a game changer for the whole South Island. Much faster internet, and it will make Invercargill a gateway, so that I believe everyone living in New Zealand will use that cable for the internet. It means that Invercargill will be a gateway with the fastest internet in the country. And I hope, and I'm sure it will attract IT companies as well. Those IT companies need connectivity. The reason why they're not in Christchurch, they are in Auckland, is just because Auckland has a better connectivity.
So the future is exciting. The time, I didn't see the slide, but when are you actually looking at being up and running? So the tenants moved in and it's all go. Is that 2020, end of 2028? So
I want to be careful about that, because there's still a few steps. We are moving one step at a time. It's actually the only way I know to move forward. And at the moment, we have secure the transformers.
I saw that.
This is a key component of the project. The lead time for the transformers is very long. So we managed to have a very short lead time thanks to Transpower and to this Egyptian supplier called El Swidi. So this is fully paid. And we just announced this morning that we are starting horizontal works with HEB, a subsidiary of Vinci Group. So this is done. And now there's a lot of things to do. We have selected Naylor Love in Vinci to be our general contractor.
Does the cable go along, the build will go alongside? Or what comes first, or are they both being built?
So we have to work in parallel. About the cable, as you know, we have a resource consent, so we are allowed to land that cable on Ority Beach. We're doing right now the same thing in Torquay, Melbourne. And we have secured the vessel to do the marine survey. And actually, for the first time, it's going to be a drone.
Oh.
Yeah, there will be nobody on the
There wouldn't
vessel.
have been drones when you did
yeah,
your last
they call it
cables.
unnamed vessels. So hopefully it's going to be fine.
You don't sound too confident.
And so even if it's a drone, the drones prefer summer. So we're going to do it in summer, in January.
Great.
So this is positive. But again, there's still a lot of things to achieve. And unfortunately, Nelolov is not going to work for free. So we might need to raise some funding. We're talking about $5 billion US. And so at the moment, this is my priority, is to work with the lenders and the investors to make sure that we will be able to pay Vinci and Nelolov.
You'll be happy about that, Johnny. Get paid. So $5 billion, that's not hard to find. You'd be a busy man. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the wasted heat. So data centres obviously produce a lot of heat. Any plans longer term or medium term for what you're going to do with that heat, or what you would like to see done with that heat, with no promises? We won't hold you to anything.
Yeah, it's a fact. These kind of data centers will produce massive amount of wasted heat. And so the question is, what shall we do with the wasted heat? Just leave it in the sky, or should we, use it? And there's no decision yet on this, but there is very interesting conversation, especially with TAMI, Te Ao Marama Inc. And there's an idea which is potentially to develop greenhouses. And I think it's a fantastic idea. If we could reuse the heat to produce organic foods that would serve the community. So we were joking with Fiona about the Makarewa mangoes. Yeah, this is the kind of, it's not the first time. We've seen this in the Arctic countries.
And also, where I see the industries working alongside each other, because we've just come back from Christchurch. We've got 8 major projects going on at the moment in Southland. If you take into account the silicon plant and aspiring materials, which has just been announced. Ora Farm was one that we talked at the Mirahuku Regeneration Wānanga about, and Fiona was also in the audience. And listening to Zoe Rees, they have just committed to a processing plant for medicinal cannabis in Hokanui. But the potential for that, I guess, to work alongside Datagrid with using the heat to be growing that, connecting all of these industries together, I think is what's exciting for our economy.
I think it's exciting, and Southland is good at farming, and hopefully we can be good at doing data. And it's interesting because we could use this wasted heat to produce more. So yeah, it's on our list. There's other ideas, but I have to say that I like this one very much.
Great.
Yeah.
The tenant. So what I kind of wanted to get across, we obviously don't have a tenant secured at the moment, but I wanted to kind of explain Datagrid's role in the fact that the consent figures that you've got, how to reconcile them. The simplest way to understand what your role is as a company is actually that you are the house builder, and then you will have a tenant that will come in and rent it. And so once you've got that tenant secured, you'll be working with them on, I guess, what the carpet and the curtains will look like, as if I was thinking of it in a residential build. So just the design elements and all the rest of it, clarity around that, yes, the current resource consents will be not revoked, but the variations will be made in the next couple of months. So that's really clear to people. So those water use will come down, all of that will come down, so that we're clear on that. What else? Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Go for it.
This is working.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it? Is it now?
Is it now?
There it is. All right. One of the things that you've just reminded me of, Remy talks about the construction cost for the site, which is a very big number. one of the things to understand is we talk about carpets and drapes and that sort of stuff, but it's carpets and drapes that cost 8 or 9 billion US. So the hardware that goes into it will actually dwarf the cost of the facility, and that hardware will be rotated out every 3 to 5 years.
Wow. So 5 billion is Datagrid's investment for the house, and then the tenant is bringing
Gold bars.
$9 billion worth of carpet.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then rotating it every 3 to 5 years. So
Huge investment.
yeah. So that's the thing to understand the scale, is that while the building itself has a big number attached to it, it's actually very small compared to the total value of the hardware that will move through it over its life. So we're talking about over, say, 25 years that it's there. Every part of it will also be upgraded, but all of those upgrades in the cooling infrastructure, energy storage, et cetera, will still be a drop in the bucket compared to the cost of the hardware that goes through it, which will, each time they do that, $8 or $9 billion.
Sherry, you also mentioned taxes. So I can tell you that Datagrid is incorporated in New Zealand, and we're going to pay taxes in New Zealand. If we are successful with this project, in the first year, we will pay around 50 million New Zealand dollar of taxes. And at the end of the project, 15 years, we will reach around 80 million a year. So we're going to pay taxes in this country, and we're very happy about it.
It's a shame those taxes don't stay in Southland. Talk to the government about that. We're going to have a pretty fancy.
Yeah, we have to change that.
Yeah. Worker accommodation. You've said you're actively seeking houses and accommodation to rent. What does that mean for people in the room? What's the accommodation plan? How will you avoid putting unnecessary pressure on local rentals, hotels and services? And I guess maybe a question for Johnny around what kind of scale of worker accommodation might be needed at peak construction, and how can local providers help, and what can we do now, I guess, to help you guys along?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So we have anticipated this challenge, and we've been engaged with the community. I see Chris here in the room. Chris has been very helpful. We're trying to find...
That's Chris Ramsey from ILT.
Chris Ramsey.
Yeah.
And so we are looking for solutions. Mm-hmm. We do have a few ideas in mind, but it might not be enough. So yes, we are now opening a page on our website, and anybody who would like to register and rent as properties, please do, because the challenge that we have is the time frame. Mm-hmm. So we won't have time to build too many accommodations, so we like to lease, or maybe also we are thinking about building a workers' village around the site, not too far away. So there's a few options, but yes, if you guys have a room, a spare room, please let us know.
Great. Okay. Before we open it up to the audience, I think I've covered, well, you guys have covered everything in your presentation, which is great. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Pareen? Is there anything you wanted to add before we open this up? Okay, what we're going to do is Nikita and Nigel, I think, are going to grab some microphones from you guys, and then we will put your hand up if you've got a question. They'll come to you, and then the Datagrid team will answer from the lectern. That's how we're going to work the sound.
One so that we can pass it around.
I think we're going to go for whoever's answering can go to the lectern.
Go up there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that way we've got both sides. Who's going to kick this off? Have we got hands up, or have we already answered all the questions? We have you go, Nikita.
Hi, look. It's working. It's working. Great. Talked about raising $5 billion. You know, where you're at in that cycle, and can you give us an idea of, you know, the likelihood of that happening?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Thank you. So, good question. The way it works in this data center industry is that we are building a facility and we are leasing it to a potential tenant based on a 15 years commitment. So for lender, we have a 15 years what they call contracted cash flow. And so we can expect on those kind of facility to raise up to 85% of debt. So we are working with an advisor in New Zealand called MAFIC. I don't know if you're familiar with MAFIC. And we are currently talking to the lenders in New Zealand, but also internationally. So we are looking at roughly raising $3 billion of debt, and US dollar, and the rest is equity. So we're very happy that we closed our Series A early this year with Mercury, and we are now raising additional equity. My wish is really to have local partners, but it's a lot of money in New Zealand. We're talking about roughly $500 million US dollar. So I'm committed to do my best to have local partners for this project, but I have also to look at international players. So it's interesting because 500 million is a lot of money here, and it's too small in Dubai. You know, in Dubai they're telling us less than $1 billion. Sorry, we have no time for that. So it is challenging, but at the moment there's huge appetite for investors and lenders in this AI industry. As you know, there's a press article every day in the press. Australia is going big, America, Europe. And again, I believe New Zealand has the potential. So we are quite confident that we can achieve this, yeah.
Anybody else got a question? Down the end here.
Oh, hi, thanks for that. That was a great presentation. I just want, because you said there'll be e-waste in like every 5 years, the hardware replacements. Where will that go?
There we go. That's a great question, and it's actually one that the industry is dealing with in general, globally, because they're rotating this out everywhere on that sort of schedule. And the main solutions that they're looking at is essentially recycling them themselves, so they move them into older facilities, right? So you have a set of facilities on different timelines, and you move them between them as you cycle these through. Also, selling them to other providers. So not everyone needs to be on the cutting edge all the time, and so they will resell them to them. But ultimately, yes, you do get to sort of the end of the road for some of this hardware, and it does need to be responsibly disposed of and recycled as appropriate. But that is something that needs to be dealt with globally, but not something that we take care of on site or anything. So we're not dumping excess hardware in the wetlands.
Okay.
Oh, the subsea cable system? Oh, that goes for decades. Yeah.
So the lifetime is 25 years. And
then do you lay a new one after 25 years?
so
Because your other cables are still going hard.
yeah, the problem is that we're always wrong when we anticipate the demand, because obviously we know the technology today, which is AI, but we have no idea about the technology in 10 years. I do my best not to be wrong again this time and to build it big enough, but it's a very difficult exercise. But so the cable will be there for 25 years, connecting Invercargill to Melbourne. I won't be surprised to see 2 more cables landing in Invercargill in the next, I would say, 5 years. Potentially one from Valparaiso to Invercargill. The idea is for Chile to potentially connect Valparaiso, Invercargill, Melbourne, Singapore, India, Middle East. So this has been discussed already, and it is public information. There is a project from a National Science Foundation in USA. They potentially like to connect Antarctica to Invercargill. So we'll see. I like the idea of Invercargill becoming a hub, attracting several systems, and stop this idea of believing we are at the end of the world. It's not true. We're in the center. Yeah.
Also, what I like about
size.
the cable is at the moment, should there be a big earthquake and we get cut off from the North Island, that something happens to the cable in Cook Strait, like we have, the whole South Island has no internet. You know, we're
Yes,
it's quite vulnerable at the moment.
Absolutely, and I would say it's not just South Island, the whole country is vulnerable at the moment. First because we have all those cables landing in the North Island, so if something really bad happens in the North Island, you know, we lose the whole traffic. You're right, the Wellington Fault is an issue. The Wellington Fault is probably the main concern in terms of connectivity in the country. And so having this new segment from Invercargill to Melbourne brings resilience and redundancy to the country. If something bad happens in the north, the traffic will go south and vice versa. And part of our project later is to build a phase 2. And as you know, we like to connect Greymouth to New Plymouth, which would be a perfect solution to go around this Wellington Fault problem. So a lot is happening, but we have to go one step at a time, and we need also support. So we're very active. I'm talking to all the fiber provider in New Zealand. They are all supportive of this initiative, and I know they want to invest into more fiber. When I said, guys, Flora Road, there's even no fiber. So all the guys are, my neighbors, they are on Starlink, doesn't make any sense. And so I hope they will, bring more fibers. For sure with this project, there will be fiber on Flora Road.
I think we had another question.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion and a couple of concerns. The suggestion is in terms of housing. I'm part of the Southland Community Housing Group. We do have a shortage of housing, especially 1 and 2 bedroom accommodation. So any support in that way I think would be great. My concern is there seems to be a lot of money coming into this for the actual construction of this, and which will benefit our local community. But the long-term benefits, I'm just not quite seeing what long-term value would provide in dollar terms. I'm concerned a little bit about the whole AI industry itself, because I know there's trillions of dollars of investment going into it at the moment, but not much profit is coming out of it. So trillions going in and not much profit. And people are predicting that there's going to be some kind of crash is going to happen eventually. I'm just wondering how resilient you think the industry is in terms of your business case here, and what the ongoing value will be in terms of, I think it was mentioned it was $8 million a year in taxes you'll pay. I'm just aware that the big tech companies...
That was 80.
80, but even that isn't really a large sum in terms of an industry. And I know the big tech companies themselves, there's a big concern that they make a lot of profit from New Zealand, but all those profits are going offshore.
Yeah, so some of those questions are more national government level questions, in terms of how do you make sure that those international companies pay their fair share. As Remy said, for our part, we are a New Zealand company. We are paying taxes here, and we will continue to do so. That's actually something that's very important to us. In terms of the AI industry itself, everyone's got their crystal ball that they like looking in. What I can say is that it is not the case that none of those companies are making money. And we should also distinguish between profits and cash flow here. In the case of some of those companies, they are actually profitable, but they are choosing to spend even more money to grow faster. And so while some of them certainly are not in good shape on that front, others really are. And there is enormous demand for what they do. I personally use AI for all kinds of things all the time. And I suspect that a lot of other folks do, both nationally and around the world. And this is just the very beginning of this cycle. So it's very hard to answer questions. Like it's similar to saying, how will the arrival of the internet change things? No one could actually predict that. Simply couldn't. or everyone having mobile phones. You just can't predict those things. And the people who try to predict them, 90% of them will be wrong. You just don't know which 90%.
And also, one comment on top of this is for Southland, I think developing a new digital economy would definitely be positive for you guys, for new companies, for investment. At the moment, again, I would say Auckland concentrate every digital companies in the country, even Christchurch, because of the latency, is not really a digital city. So I like competition. Why not we have? Why is Auckland the only hub in the country? I think 2 hubs is good. So
I also like diversifying our exports, because at the moment we're a huge exporting region, but we're all physical exports that are commodity driven, that rely on freight, the Strait of Hormuz being open, the fuel prices, when COVID hit and we were taking, ships weren't even coming to our country. This is a weightless export that Southland can now use. We get the tax back. We still are an exporting region. It's just another thing we can add to our belt. So
absolutely, and we just announced the cable a few weeks ago. So, but on my to-do list, I like to meet with the internet service providers here in Southland, because I believe we could really have the fastest and the best internet in the whole country.
Oh,
But
we hold you to that.
we need local company to work with me and say, okay, let's double the volume of capacity for the same price, this kind of thing, and take benefit from the cable. Again, I don't want to be too optimistic, but really a subsea cable anywhere on the planet, when you connect the subsea cable, you see an increase in the economy, in digital economy.
Right, exciting. We have to let these lovely people get back to work. So thank you, Remy. Thanks to the Datagrid team. Thanks, Johnny, for being up here on stage with us. And thank you all for coming. I really hope we've been able to answer your questions this afternoon. This has been recorded, so the link will be put up on our Facebook, hopefully this afternoon or tomorrow. So please share it. We'd like to be able to get the information out into the community. It's great to hear that from now on, or from here on, you're going to be also having open monthly public meetings. So if anyone has any concerns, you can let your friends and whānau know that they are welcome to come along to those. And we will continue to work with Datagrid and the wider business community as the project progresses to get all the information out there on how you can get involved. So have a great afternoon, everybody. Mā te wā.
Thank you very much.